Good morning. Buenos dias. Hello, everybody. Oh my God, who do I have here? Who is this? Who are you?
I'm Betty Martinez.
Ooh, tell us more about Betty Martinez.
I have a public relations agency called Prisma Communications, but I do multiple things. So I volunteer at the City of Irvine in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I am also an ambassador for the Aussie Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I try to insert myself wherever.
Everywhere. O sea, you're everywhere, Betty.
Yes.
Qué bueno. You're also, I don't know if it's okay to share, you're also a mom?
I'm also a mom and a grandma.
I mean, you play a lot of roles here.
Yes.
Okay, so I like to ask this question on top of that. It's very existential. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
You listen to Mel Robbins, so I feel like you can get with this.
Okay, sounds good.
Who are you really? Like, yes, you have all these things that you're working on, but ¿quién eres? Like, who are you?
Oh,
yeah, I know. I like to just. I'm gonna get my sip of coffee here.
I know. So, I believe I'm a woman who is passionate about, helping community get better.
Why is that important to you?
I came here from Mexico as an undocumented person, and I went through a lot of tribulations. I think it is important just to, if you have come too far or far in your life, it's important to go back and like, okay, you know what, there are other people that are in the same situation that you were when you started, so let's give back. I mean, it wouldn't be fair just to keep on going and never look back for where you come from. But I am really passionate about helping everyone. I'm passionate about helping students. I just feel like I still value college. I know that not college is not for everybody, but if I can be a mentor for anyone that it's a first generation student, I always appreciate that.
That is very special. And I'm glad you shared that with me because, when I do these coffee chats and I invite someone over, they don't know this, and Betty, I don't know if she knew this, but every time I talk to somebody, I hear their story. I really value people's story, and I go, okay, what did I get out of this conversation? And with you was you are resilient. You have this ability to push on and to follow your heart, what you care about, and you just and here you are with your own business, and also giving back. This is very cool.
Yes.
Okay, so I thought today what we could talk about, where you can kind of lend your lens here, is we already talked about tenacity with our dear friend Saul. So go check that out, by the way. We're going to put it in the description, the link to that. But I thought, let's maybe, I feel like every, mental health and anything that's very human, it's all connected. But I'm just kind of moving us from a different side of it, right, the way we're looking at it. And I thought, let's talk about this idea of your mindset, of how being mindful of the choices we make, of having to be in positions where we're all we want to do is maybe give up, or we just are this is enough. But when we work on figuring out where our mindset is at, it could really help propel us forward. It can move us sideways. It can move us backwards. The mindset is so integral, right?
Yes, and I think mindset goes very close together with motivation. So I always try to find out how can you motivate yourself, right? Because there are times when you're just I just don't want to even
get out of bed.
Get out of bed, exactly.
I mean, honestly,
it's just I'm just gonna stay here all day and just forget about the world.
Yeah.
But having that mindset of what is motivating you and always finding your why. That's a mindset. And for me, my why for many years, and I think up until today, it's have been my daughters. My daughters have been my inspiration to have that mindset of hey, I have to wake up, I have to go to work, I have to provide for them, and make sure that they are always well taken care of.
Oof.
Right now, obviously, they are an adult. I still worry about them. They're my babies.
I know. I hear it never. It never goes away. Yeah.
Exactly. But it changes. My mindset right now, it's like, you know what? I want to build some sort of wealth so my daughters don't have that in their bag, like when I'm old. And it's like they don't have that in their stress in their finances.
You bring up something really interesting. I don't know if it's controversial, right? But there's been chatter amongst friends and people, or like, where it's like some people feel like they have kids through it because they say stuff like, oh, well, I have kids so that they can take care of me when I'm old. But there's a lot of discourse about that statement, and what you're saying is kind of like very interesting. How do you feel about that statement as a mom and like as people choosing to have children?
Yeah, I mean, that is controversial. Maybe also from people my age, and being as a Latina, I think we are more used to like, oh yeah, my children are gonna take care of you when they're older. But I see their struggles. I mean, childcare is like extremely expensive, and it's another rent, and I see them struggling. Struggling. Rent is super high. Like, there's no way anybody can support someone else full time, and I just don't want to depend on any. I mean, I've been very independent all my life, so I wish I'm not super dependent on them, at least economically. If I can do that, I would like to have them around me, but at least.
Yeah, you want your flexibility to do your thing.
Exactly.
You know, I get that.
Yeah, and feel like they are not strengthened, because sometimes money make families tear apart.
Tear them apart. Yeah.
So definitely. That's my mindset right now.
You see how she did that? The mindset? That's your mindset right now?
That's my mindset right now, and just trying to build some wealth, some financial security. Just try to do all the things that I didn't do when I was younger, because nobody taught me about financial education.
Planning, all that stuff.
Exactly. And again, as a Latina, I feel like, and in immigrant, we don't talk about money. And I am trying to educate myself little by little, just starting with my business, right? It's like just trying to manage all the finances, and when they tell me, oh, put this in the Excel sheet and put your old expenses and the projections, and I'm like, you're talking about what?
It's a lot. It's a lot. But I think, like you meant, like, going back to your this idea of like, this is my mindset.
Yes.
I think that's something really cool to address, to share, is that, you know, once you own like where you're at, you know, where you understand like your reality and what's motivating your reality, you're already saying like, this is my mindset, you know? And so I always like to come from a place of like, if people are watching and they're still sort of trying to figure things out, my question to you is like, how do you start getting to a place where you can be like, owning that and being like, you know what, I'm clear, like this is my why, or like this is where my mind is at, and this is like the plan for me. Like, how do you get to a place where you can, what's helped you?
Well, that's a work in progress.
Always. Yeah.
We were talking about that when I just got here, about how hard it is for me to believe that I have done enough to be there. So yes.
For me, I'm just like, why, Betty? Like, dude, like, do you acknowledge what you've done? It's hard. We're our worst critics. I mean, it truly is.
Yes.
So do you take a minute to be like, you know what? Like, wait, let's sit down and break down what you've accomplished, what you've been able to do.
I'm working on it. Definitely, it's one of those things that I have that mindset, like, okay, into the next thing,
Yeah.
and it's completely running and never stopping, and just saying, I am grateful to be here. So I'm working on that. Grateful works.
Yeah, gratitude.
Being grateful about gratitude. Yes.
Yeah, I always tell myself, I'm like, mentally, if I'm not able to recognize be grateful, if I'm not able to like really be grateful, I'm like, something's up.
Yeah.
You know, algo está pasando. Like, I'm not like, let's slow down. Let's, you know, because it really does help clear your mindset.
Exactly.
I feel like I feel like there's a lot of the times, you know, there's a lot of fog, you know, or there's a lot of insecurities and things that get in our head. And for me, I'm like, I'm not able to see what my mindset is. But, you know, thankfully I've had the ability to like go to therapy and do some of my retrospective reflecting and all that stuff that I'm like, I don't know, Betty, like at the start of this year, like I was very nervous because I was like, last year was like like craziness, like good craziness, but it was a lot of work. And I went to this, like the first day of the year, and I was like, oh my God, Betty. I was like, okay, here we go. Like, otro año, you know, I was like, here we go. And then there was this sort of like easiness of being like, as long as I have a good mindset about how I talk to myself and how I feel, like, let's just chill. Let's just keep chilling. Like, it's like, it's so quick for me to like jump ahead and be like, but what about this and this and that? And I'm like, I'm working on really being like, let's just be in the moment, like day by day, month by month, like let's just chill. Let's like trust myself in the decisions I'm making. Yeah. That's sort of what I'm doing. And it's going okay.
Yeah.
It's going okay.
Yeah, no, and I've seen you're doing amazing things, so it's always
it's
the
aquí,
mindset. Yes.
Aquí te digo, like here it's like, it's so powerful, you know. I feel like what I'm doing is like, it's almost like I'm feeding my brain, you know. I'm just like, okay, like how can I make sure you're okay so that we can do the things we want to do, you know. But it's discipline. It's like, it's active work. There's the days that are harder than others, but that's why I'm like, you should definitely take a moment to think about things you've accomplished, because when I think about like, I'm like, wait, we've accomplished XYZ. I'm like, well, how did I get there? Like we're capable of it. So then I go, okay.
Exactly.
Está bien, like.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, I tend to do this, and you know who had stopped me also my tracks when I say things like, oh, you know what? I am so lucky that I got into my master's program.
Oh, hey.
I am so lucky that I got my green card. Like it was just like, it just happened, right?
Yeah.
It's never the work that I have put into doing the research of how do I get my green card or how do I get my U.S. citizenship. It's my work that I put on. It's my money that I work to pay for it.
Yes.
It's my effort to do all these things in order to enter a graduate program. So it's always, and I always think, oh, I'm so lucky. It's just a luck of the draw.
But it's funny because you're like, it's luck, but it's also, I'm hearing like you're saying it's you. It's you did this.
Exactly. And that's where I'm having trouble. Like that mindset should be there, but it's one of those things that, oh yeah, no, it wasn't me. It was just luck. It's something, I was there in the right moment. It's fate. And
I mean,
it's some sort of fate and combination, right? But we tend to diminish.
There we go. That's what, yes, we tend to diminish or devalue. I was just talking to somebody, I will not say it will be anonymous, but, and I think we do this, especially I think as Latinas.
Yeah.
Is we diminish or we go, oh, like, actually, I will proudly say it's in one of my interviews with Lonnie from Casa Bloom was like, you know, I think a lot of us say like, oh, let's be humble. But it's like, humble is also diminishing our accomplishments, you know? And so it's like, we have to, and so this other person I was talking to was like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm bragging, but I'm like, but you should be proud. Like you, by owning your truth and owning your accomplishments, like, and even owning your mistakes, you know, like that's okay too. Like, I don't know, I think there's power in that, because then there's no fear of like failure, but I don't know, I just feel like it's all intertwined. It's just being like, I did this. Yeah,
and you know, you brought a very important point. Like, you made me remember America Ferrara in the Barbie movie. I can quote her because I don't know.
Let's do it.
I mean, I cannot quote her. I don't remember all the stuff.
I was like, oh, you memorized a monologue?
Yeah, I know. That would be amazing. But like, if you are too good, it's because you're too good. If you don't do enough, it's because you don't do enough.
Just excuses of like, wait, why can't you just like own what that is
Yeah.
and not feel like it's because of something, or like in your case, like, oh, I was lucky. It's like, no, you, and this happens with me I remember with Anna, I was telling somebody that I know that I was like, oh, I'm so lucky to have her. And I am obviously very lucky, but she's like, but you cultivated this. Like you saw her and you cultivated this relationship with her, and you took care of yourself to be in a space where I could, meet somebody like that and be open to her. So like you also, she's lucky to have you too, and I'm just like, oh yeah. Like, so I definitely do that with stuff too. It's hard to, it is. Wow. Okay. Let's think about that. It is hard to, it is, yeah, it's hard to, and it's hard to, oh my God. Okay. I tend to get over my words here. Pero, por ejemplo, like when I started Donas and Tortas I actually started in 2016 with photos and stuff.
Okay.
In 2018, I was like, I want this to be a space where I can be creative. And so I was like, I want to do interviews. And so I did a few interviews, and I did a website launch party. Like everybody was like very supportive, and I was like, oh my God. And so I started doing some interviews, and then guess what, Betty?
What?
I got scared. I was like too close to the fire, too close to something I really want.
Yeah.
I can't have it. Like I'm busy with work. No, my employer was actually very supportive, actually.
Yeah.
It was just me. It was me. I was like, no, like my mindset was like, no, like I was afraid of it. And so I was like, I went away from it. Mm-hmm. And I stopped. And throughout those years, like I did a couple things, but when I finally jumped back into it, and I would say in 2022, I really was like, this is a part of me, like self-expression, like this is a part of what brings me joy, what is true for me. And I leaned on that. When I leaned on my truth, yes. I was able to do the things that I was afraid of doing for myself.
Exactly. Boom. That's the moment that you realize that this is where your path.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I get it, because as I was telling you, that I just do millions of things, but I feel like I'm running
What's your path?
away.
What's your path? Let's get into it. What's your path?
Well, I think, obviously I want to grow my business. That's number one, because I need to support myself. Their money.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But if something that I'm passionate, like I mentioned, helping back to the community, one of my dreams
Let's manifest. We're manifesting.
Yes.
A ver.
One of my dreams is to become a city council for the city of Irvine.
Oh my gosh, dude. I just got like chills right here. Imagínate.
Yes. So
let's make this happen, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're on your way. You're like in there. You're with that?
Yes. So I'm involved with a program called Emerge California, who prepares women of color, women into getting into political careers.
Oh my God! You need to be offline. Well, not offline. You should definitely go to the Hope Latina History Day. Oh, okay.
Yes,
they have a whole. Okay.
Hope is another organization that I think it's amazing, and I have attended.
Okay. Are we going this March? Are we going?
I'm not sure, because I have a trip on March.
Oh, okay,
I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah, you're familiar with the organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Ándale. I love to hear this from me, because I'm like, because your face even lit up right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you noticed it, but like, you're like, oh yeah, I have my job. And then you're like, this is what I want to do. I'm like, phew. Like, it's palpable. Like, it's.
Well, a couple of side notes on Hope. When I was in Cal State Fullerton, I had my...
Go Titans.
Yes, go Titans. Shout out to my mentor, Inez Gonzalez, when she was a director of the Latino Communications Institute.
I do know her.
Yes. She was the first one that took me to Hope. And she took a group of women, colleagues of mine now, and she said, have an elevator speech ready. And I'm just like,
what?
What? Is that? You mean like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's those little things that as an immigrant, first generation student here in the United States, I wasn't taught. But once I got there and entered the room and seen amazing Latinas doing amazing things.
And so many of them.
Yeah.
That's so electric, yeah.
And over there, I met Hilda Solis. a few years later, so I took a picture, like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I took a picture with her. Years later, I went back to Hope, and I told her, like, oh, you know what, I met you a few years ago, but you probably don't recognize me. Like, you look super familiar. I'm pretty sure I have met you. Like, let's take a picture together. So I took a picture with her again. So it's just funny, yeah.
You're on your way, baby.
Yeah.
You're on your way. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
okay. So
the
this
mindset.
So this mindset. Let's talk about. I don't know if you want to share some moments in your life where your mindset, like when was it hard, and what helped you through that, so that you can be like, no, like my mind has to be in this space in order to move on or to, get through this moment. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the hardest moments, it was when I went through domestic violence, and I was undocumented. My daughters were 4 and 6 years old.
Wow.
So at that moment, I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh my gosh.
One of the reasons I actually left my abuser, it was because I went to school and I wanted to start the research about how to manage. For me, at that moment, it's just saving my marriage, right? I thought that I can save my marriage.
Yeah.
But the counselors didn't took it like that. And they say, you don't leave, we're going to take your children away.
Oh my gosh. You're like,
yeah. That was enough for me to say, hey, there's no choice here. What do I do? So I have to run away, pack everything, and
with your kids?
Yeah. And that wasn't even a mindset. It was just like survival. Like at that moment, I was numb. I just needed to do what I needed to do. They asked me to do. And I went to a women's shelter at that moment. And then it was through a lot of work with therapists to change my mindset that yes, you can do it. Like they made me realize that just because I was depending on him didn't mean that I could start over. So yeah.
Wow.
And that was one of the toughest things. I remember the shelter was in Long Beach, right, in the worst area of Long Beach. And they sent me to social services to ask for cash aid and food stamps and all the stuff. And the nearest place was in Compton, so I have to take a bus. And I'm just like, what? I have to take a bus by myself? You're telling me that I have to take a bus by myself? Wow. So I had a friend that she told me, look, take it one step at a time. If you do this, you're gonna feel so much empowered once you come back. Just think about how much empowered you're gonna feel when you come back. And I took it that way. Like I changed my mindset of I can do it to that's right. If I can do this, maybe I can do more.
Oh, shoot.
Yes.
Shit.
So I came back and I told my friend, like, oh my God, you were so right. I just feel like it was scary. It was scary to death. Just like being in front of the camera.
You're doing so good, Betty. This
just taking one step at a time. I was just like jumping into it.
Yes.
And you feel empowered. It's like, okay, if I can do this, what else can I do?
And it just like continues.
Trickle down there, and it just, I say, okay, now I have to, still undocumented. My friend ended up in Costa Mesa in a shelter, in another women's shelter, less transitional, it was more permanent. And she told me, Betty, I want you to come here because I feel like you will benefit from this area, and it's just so peaceful. Well, they end up sending me to LA it was a women's shelter that was across USC. And I was still scared, like I have never been in Los Angeles. My area was more Orange County. Yeah. And I just like, oh, what am I gonna do? And
you have your kids.
Yeah, and I have my kids, and it's like, okay. Jeez. So I told my caseworkers, hey, there is this women's shelter in Costa Mesa. Do you think you can refer me to it? So you know what they told me? Like, well, you don't have documents. They're not gonna take you because,
Wow.
I mean, that's what they do. I mean, they're gonna try to find you a job and they can't because you don't have documents. Like, okay, well, can we try at least?
You said that?
Yes.
Wow.
And they
Wow.
were not happy. Like, I was telling them what to do with their job. So my caseworker applied for me and I got interviewed because you get interviewed and they just want you to know that you speak English because unfortunately back then they didn't have any therapist that spoke Spanish, and that I was willing to go through the program with them, which was therapy every week, and just take your time to heal. And I say, of course. And they love me. It's like, you know what? You are coming here. So when I told them what my caseworkers in LA told me, like, what are they talking about? We just need you to speak English because that's the only requirement. We don't care about you not having documents.
Wow.
But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because that's where my healing really started. And they empower me in all my decisions. They empower me and they believe in me. That was the first time that somebody actually believed in me.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh, this is great. So,
Betty,
Yes.
do you recognize, like, you did this? Like, you took those steps. You advocated for yourself. You pushed. You did that, dude. Like, like, que mujer. O sea, like, holy shit.
yes. Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you
now,
see that?
Now I see that. Like, I now see that.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes like, oh, it was fate that put me with that friend that told me to do the first step to get into that bus. The same friend that took me into, brought me to Costa Mesa to that. And that's Human Options, by the way.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
shout
we'll
out to
definitely
Human
put them in there.
Options.
But you cultivated this friend, and you took this friend's advice. A lot of us, you know, we can hear advice and we sometimes don't take it.
Yes.
But you were called to it, and you did the work, you know. And I love the story about you're like, can we just try? Like you're just like, you were not gonna have no for an answer. You're like, no. I mean, that's like powerful.
Yes.
And so the fact that you want to like advocate for more for the community and to hear like what you did for yourself, like it's very powerful.
Yes.
Very powerful. And it's the mindset that you were you were able to
Switch. Right?
How does it feel sharing the story now, like now that you're in this place at your this time in your life? Like how does it feel reflecting right now in that time of your life?
It is more powerful. Again, it's just trying to share my story so people know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And it feels safe now to share.
Yeah.
Like before, it was hurtful and it's just like at some point shameful because I thought it was my fault and why I stayed so long. So definitely it was hard for me to share. But right now I realize, you know what, going back to be your own true self, this is my true self. Like if I want to be share my story, I have to be myself and share my truth. And my truth is that I experienced domestic violence. This shaped me of the woman that I am today. For the worst or for the good, I am here, right? I'm here. Make me more resilient.
I was gonna say, like, there is power to your experience, to your story. You bring perspective that, I mean, and such strength, like, I mean, I'm sure it's hard enough to do it just being on your own, but to have children in the mix of it, like, I'm not a mother yet, but I can imagine that there's like, that's a whole other layer of what you're carrying and we're trying to look out for them.
Yeah. Like,
how is being a mother when it comes to mindset and knowing, like, because me, I can only, I just think, not that I don't think about Anna or my dog, I mean, I think that's one thing, right? It's like to take care of yourself and your partner. But you have these, 2 children that you raise. Like, can you walk me through, like, as a mother, like, how this idea of mindset, like, how do you manage it? How do you foster, like, cultivate it for yourself? Like, how does one do that as a mother?
Yeah, well, I mean, after I realized that I was on my own, I just say, well, you know what? I I'm gonna do what it takes to support them, even if I have to collect recyclables and sell them. I don't care. I am gonna do that for my children. My parents at some point, they told me like, you need to come back. I mean, they have homes in Mexico. It's like, just come back, bring your children. And just like, no, I can't do it on my own. I have to do it here.
Wow.
Because my children are U.S. citizens, and I just don't want to do that dramatic change back to Mexico. So I just didn't want to.
But like, that's right. Like, even that in of itself is there's such strength in that. Like, first that you're like, obviously, a good mom thinking about your children and what their experience of being like, even if this is going to be harder, you're like, I'm going to do it. Like, I don't know if you're recognizing these pieces of how resilient and strong you are, Betty.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to like help you see this, like uncover, this is your story, dude. Like these are choices that you've made. And like what I'm hearing is that you're like, I'm going to choose the hard, and that's okay because it's for the best. It's like you're like from a genuine place. You're like, even if this is going to be harder, I know that this is the right thing to do. Like, you're doing that.
Yes. Oh, and wow. And taking decisions on your own, it's just that the hardest thing is like, oh my gosh, I wish somebody will be here with me to make a decision for me. But it was on me. Whether it was going to be a wrong decision or good decision, it was going to be on me.
Yeah, how does that feel?
Oh my gosh, it's just like, oh, I don't want to do this. I mean, yeah, definitely there were moments like, oh, I just don't want to do this. But it's just trusting that you're doing this with the best abilities that you have, and that everything is going to turn out the way that it's supposed. And if it doesn't turn out the way that it's supposed to turn out, then there is always another path. And that's one of the therapists that they told me, like, when I wanted to, because I started my career, my communications career in Mexico. And because I got married, I didn't finish. So when they were asking me, so what do you want to do? What do you really want to do? So I was like, oh, I want to work, and I want to start working. Like, no. Really, what do you want to do? Like, well, I stopped my career in Mexico, and I want to go back to school if that's possible. But I don't think so. I'm too old. And she's like, no, you're not too old. Look, take it this way. There is people that walk a straight path. You are just taking a little detours, but you're going to get to the goal. So.
No te rindes. You're just like, let's go. You're like, let's go.
A seguir adelante. So that was the mindset that got me through saying, you know what, I'm just taking, and just looking at that perspective that my life is not a linear path. It's just going and seeing the scenery, or just taking detours here and there, and it's just like, okay, well, I mean, this one didn't took me where I wanted to be, then let's take another path. Like, there's never a closed path for me. And como dice mamá y mi papá, solamente la muerte es la que te para y todo, no?
Do you want to translate for some of our folks who don't speak Spanish?
Yes. So only when you're dead is when you cannot continue in that path.
The end
right?
of the that's the end of the line right there. Yeah, that's true. It's like, until then you have to. You're here.
Yeah.
You're here. Like, people really underestimate like this idea of like, you wake up and you're like, you're still here. Like, you're still here, you know? And there's some power in that. I do think that, like, and it's like, I don't know, I think it's liberating to be in a place where you can just be like, I'm here, and like, not every day is going to be, as, certain highs, but, I've been being grateful for this idea of like, just being in a space of like, even neutrality, or is that the word? Yeah. Being in a neutral space, or just having a happy, boring life, that's fun too. There's peace in that. Yes. I don't know if that resonates with you.
Enjoying the moment.
Sí.
Enjoying the moment. Yeah, that's sometimes also hard to do when you're just like, okay, no, I need to keep on going in this path, right? Keep on going on there. Just stop and enjoy the scenery, enjoy,
Yeah. And I think like being around people who are able to do that, you're like, oh, okay. I remember in my 20s, my family was always like, you're always so stressed out, Jackie. And I was always like, they don't understand, you know, I'm like career driven and this and that.
Yes.
And now I'm like, wait, it doesn't have, like, there's more to life than this, you know, like, and being in the moment and being present and having a mindset of like, just like I used to be a huge like multitasker, but now I'm like, no, screw that. Like, I don't know. For me, I'm like one task at a time. Like, you have your list and you do it, and todo a su tiempo, because you give it each their time, you know?
Their time, exactly.
Yeah.
I have never been a multitasker. It's just like, I always focus on one thing at a time.
That's good.
Yeah. Like,
she's got good stuff here, y'all.
It's just good or bad, because sometimes I have so many projects. It's like, I want to do that all that. And one project always gets eliminated from the list. I'm like, shoot.
Pero eso pasa.
Yeah,
And being in the mindset of like, it's okay. Like, like, if you really, if your list and it gets cut, you're like, oh, it clearly was not at the top of the list.
Yeah,
so you're just like,
exactly.
But it's hard to be like, oh.
Yeah.
But then you go, I don't know, I feel like I'm working on trying to get to a point where I can just be like, I didn't get to that, and that's okay. Like, I know that I did the best I can with these, you know, these things. So there's like peace in that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I completely get it. It's all about just not overwhelming yourself with all the work that you're doing, and but still trying to accomplish as much as you can. Yeah.
That's funny you say that. This idea of being overwhelmed, and I think like, especially with the mindset thing, I feel like sometimes we have like, it's what's true, what's reality, as much as it can be, right? Reality, and then there's like everything that your head is trying to tell you. But then there's like, you have to, I don't know, I've been able to realize like there's two things going on there. And that's why I'm able to be like, wait, let's take a deep breath, let's slow down, let's take a break, like, because now I'm getting confused, right? Like reality and what I'm telling myself. And sometimes the brain can, you know, tell you things in a tone that's like, makes you not have the right mentality or have the right mindset, right? But then you just like get clarity, and then you're like, wait, XYZ, like being objective and being like, so like, if you doubt yourself, you go, wait, hold up. I did this, and that. Okay, so we're good. It's okay. We're good. Like, I don't know. It's like about being like demystifying yourself of like what you're saying to yourself, and be like, no, ¿sabes qué? Those are not even truths.
Yeah. You reminded me, a good friend of mine just told me, like, I was explaining like, oh, you know what? Sometimes when you get in a fight with your children or something like that, it's just like, they remember the fight one way, and I remember it something else. It's like, well, just remember they are living their own reality, and you are living your own reality. So the way that she's telling her own story to herself, and you're telling your own story. So this is why some problems here in the world, about people cannot see each other face to face.
Tunnel vision, they see their own,
Exactly. Yeah. So they have the mindset of already set that, no, this is the way it is, when they don't see what other person is also feeling or thinking, or how they are seeing their own reality. So it's very important to ask questions and see how, really to understand how other person is looking at their reality, in order to be more empathetic with that person. So
you said a key word, empathetic, empathy. I think when we feel threatened by somebody that may feel a certain way differently than yours, I think that's why like this idea of like owning your truth, it's like, and owning who you are. There's power in that, because then when you have conversations, you can be like, you don't feel threatened by what they're saying, because you know who you are, but that doesn't mean that you can't like try to understand what somebody else's perspective, right? And what they're feeling, what they're seeing.
Exactly.
Not necessarily that they're necessarily trying to change you, right? You know your truth, and you can assess. That's what I've come to realize, is like, when people share things with you, you can be like, okay, I'm assessing it. I don't have to take it. I can hear you out. We can have a conversation. But some people who aren't able to have conversations and are, I think that they feel threatened.
Yes, that's the threat.
And then there's like insecurity there, and then it's like, oh, like, I don't know. I think you're limiting your life experience. No, like I feel like you can have more life experience if you. I don't know. I've always been a very curious person, so to me, I'm like, no, tell me what you think about that. Really, like I'm so curious. I'm like, I want to hear it. You know, I used to think that was like a bad thing, but now I'm like, no, I like it, like because it
expands your point of view by listening to others, and you're hearing their walks of life and where they're coming from. Then you start to expanding your views and getting more open-minded about certain topics that you might not be so, or you were not so educated on. And you think that it was your own way, but by listening where they're coming from, it's just like, oh shoot, I was wrong on this, and it will be really nice to learn more about.
Well, it's interesting because I think that that's a good way to approach, like, I'm like you said, work in progress, always learning. But I feel like that even that having those conversations with like friends, family, clients, partners, like that's something that's like, it's like a pretty cool, sounds like a really cool way to approach like any conversation, honestly, because I think so many of us like are stunted by conflict instead of being like, okay, didn't expect that, you know, plot twist. So you just relax and you go, okay, tell me more about this. Let's hear this out. Why do you feel that way? You know, instead of, and that's something I'm working on. I was like, tell me why you feel this way, instead of being like, well, what, you know, why didn't they see it this way? It's like, okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it. You know? Exactly. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm making sense, but.
No, it's all about getting into that mindset.
Yeah. Ooh, I like it. It's pretty powerful.
Getting into the mindset of just being, again, more empathetic with other people, and it can take you places, and
it can.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to work harder into becoming more empathetic. And again, it's just asking questions. And again, the experiences that you have in life help you to understand also other people. So, yeah.
This openness.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you know, mindset is a. I also think how it sort of is a cousin of this idea of being intentional. You know, because when you're mindful, you're being mindful about. It could even be not silly things, but like mindfully eating. You know, mindfully. You know, structuring your day, mindfully. You know, taking that next step. You know, I think a lot of us are so quick to be like, and I'm guilty of it too, right? Like that's how I understand that. It's like I think a lot of us are like, no, we got to get here and that. I was like, hold up, like even what your story that you shared was like, you just need to take that next step of like just get in the bus. Like, I think a lot of us are just like, I think sometimes it's okay to like let's just take the next small step. Porque there's then it's like, honestly, sometimes there's a sense of like relief when you're just like, okay, I just have to get to this next. If we're already thinking, I know for me, like if I'm already thinking about step 10, oh my God, I'm gonna stay right here. I'm gonna stay right here. I'm not even gonna get to step 4. And now I'm realizing with life, it's like, I'm like, okay, let's get to the next step. Like, and that's okay if I'm going a little slower today or, I'm saying.
No, and I agree. I'm super visual, so I always imagine a little.
Let's see it. What are we seeing here?
Ladder.
Okay.
Like steps to heaven.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like you, right? Like, if I am a big picture person, and which it can serve me well when it comes to creativity and coming with ideas. But I'm not the kind of person that breaks down. How am I going to get there, right?
You're like, I just know that's where we're going. Yeah.
And that's why maybe I go in this path, right? But I need to teach myself, and I'm still learning again, that when I see that goal and it's amazing, and it's just like I become overwhelmed because I don't know how to get there. Yeah. So taking just the first step up, and just taking it in a very granulate way, it's the best way to approach that goal. Like, yes, have that goal in mind, but just go and do the first step. And just, even if it's, hey, I'm going to write a list of to-do list.
Yeah,
that's the first step,
I mean,
right?
I love that. That's a great to do the to-do list is great.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and definitely when you are, for example, a student, they teach you all these, right? Like, oh my gosh, a test tomorrow, and how am I going to study all this? I mean, you should have studied 6 months ago instead of the night before of the test.
Pero sí, o sea, poco a poco, o sea, everything, and then I think it also reinstates by doing that, like you really are able to be present, and you also like don't put the pressure of like failing. You know, I don't know. I just feel like it's you just doing your part, what you can, and everything takes time. Everything, you know. What is it? Somebody told me like there's no miracles. Like you have to. Everything requires work, like hard work. O sea, so just like it'll happen. You know, like don't. I feel like if you go so fast or you just are like tunnel vision, it's like then you're like, why did you do it in the first place? Like your why. Like back to what you were saying about your why. I mean, let's talk about that for a second. I'm like, oh my gosh, like. I feel like I just did this retreat that I'm excited to talk about. One of my clients I train. So I'll talk about it. I'll do this little tease, sneak peek, but it really does talk about how, like, really understanding who you are and the way you feel and what your vision is fundamental to ultimately where you spend your time and the projects you work on and all that stuff. Like if you have that really strong sense of who you are and what you want, you won't ever feel like you're not doing the right thing or you're wasting your time. It's like, it's on purpose, but it's not as intense, it's just more of like even your everyday things, because I think sometimes we can feel guilty for doing X, Y, Z, or we're like, does this make sense? It's like, no, it's like, it does, like from a fundamental place, it does make sense. I'll give you an example. Maybe, maybe that might help. Because it's all here.
No.
But por ejemplo, like for me, connection is really important. When I was 5 years old, like I'd be the person that would be at the grocery store, and my dad would tell me, he's like, you'd see somebody from class that I get so excited, and I'd be like, hi, or I just really craved like friendship and just community and I've seen it trickle through my life, right? Like I've seen it in moments where I really am leaning on that. Like at Casa Fullerton was part of a group called Hermanas Unidas, which I loved, and I would make videos with them and all that stuff. So it was like a mixture of the things I loved, and I'm really, if I look back, I'm like, I am proud of myself that I, in my own way, I was truthful with myself as best I could. And then life gets in the way, you start working and all this stuff, and then sometimes we forget the things that once lit us up. And so what I've been trying to do the last couple of years, especially last year with the business, was like, this is connection and all that stuff. It's like, it's really important to me. So it feels right. And it might look different for other people. They're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, no, this makes sense for me. And things are falling into place because I'm being truthful with myself. Does that help paint a picture of like? Oh
yeah. No, absolutely. It brings me back when I was going through domestic violence, that I think I'm recovering myself, but I was this like girl that was very bold and adventurous, and I did all these things. Like I wasn't scared about a lot of things. I mean, I came here and crossed the border illegally and jumped the wall.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh my God.
So that's the whole story, right?
Wow.
It's just one of those things that I wasn't scared of anything. And after leaving him, I was scared of everything.
Wow.
And obviously, I forgot my true self, who I was. When I was with my abuser, I couldn't have friends. I'm this super friendly person, very outgoing.
Yes. So friendly. I like pretty much attacked her when I met her. I was like, Betty, I heard about you. And I was like, you need to meet Betty. I was like, hi, Betty. And you're like, hey.
And I love meeting you and Anna. So you guys are amazing.
So you were saying that like he was, they were.
Yeah, so it's like I felt like I was a candle and he turned off my light. And it's been a journey to just trying to find myself again. And where I was going with the story.
Your truth.
Yes,
like how powerful your truth is.
Exactly. So right now it's just like sometimes I have that little voice that, oh, you know what, you're being too bold, or you're being too much.
Too.
Yeah, too much.
Punch that out of your head. Like, let's get this out of here. Vámonos.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to be more myself and be honor that girl that I loved in Mexico, that I was, honor her, and just be again who I was, and just like, not that I don't give a
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll say it for you. As long as I don't cuss the first, I think the first 3 minutes of the video.
Okay. As long as I don't give a, it's,
Your kids are watching, okay?
Exactly. Sometimes you have to say things that make people uncomfortable in order to change the narrative.
Say that again.
Sometimes you have to say the things that make people uncomfortable in order to change the narrative. So definitely, yes, I've been learning that, and being a member of the DEI committee, sometimes you have to actually go and say, hey, you know what we are doing is not the right thing. We need to be more proactive on this, even though you can tell people get uncomfortable with just talking about the reality of society. And it's just like, well, this is how I'm presenting my point of view on how my experience are as a woman of color here in United States, in hopes that you understand where I'm coming from. So
wow, Betty, that's I'm really proud of you.
Yeah,
that you're doing that work. It's not comfortable, but but you know what, like, I mean, you're believing in, you're honoring the way you feel, you're honoring what you believe in, and that's all we have. Like, then it's like you're living for someone else, and so you have to be, and I think some people get uncomfortable or scared because they're not able to do it for themselves a lot of the times, and you just have to, it sounds like you really are trusting yourself. Yes. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Mira?
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a point where you said about failure.
Yeah.
I think we have to be more comfortable with failure, and I have hearing more people talking about that. And it's one of those things, like, I know the wars were not good ever, right?
Yeah.
But from those wars have become like some sort of renaissance, as you can say, like new art has come from that. Beauty has come from
expressing what is going around us and putting it to art.
And of course wars are horrible, and I'm not pro war, but what I'm saying is that sometimes you're not gonna learn from successes. You're just gonna be you are going to plateau when you are successful after success. It's like, I don't need to work harder. But when you fail, you learn from that. I mean, if you learn from that failure, sometimes we don't learn.
We don't allow ourselves, so we're like,
have you watched that Simpsons where...
Anna probably has.
Yeah, they put Bart Simpson, the sister, I forgot her name.
Okay. Lisa?
Lisa.
Come on, Betty.
She tried to put an experiment on her brother. It's like, okay, I'm going to put a donut, precisely, I think.
Oh.
It's like with a buzzer, like a zap, so if you can zap to see, because mice, they go and they just never touch it again. No, Simpson goes. Bart Simpson goes, and eat it and go.
Keeps going. He doesn't care.
He doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole point of failure is to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And from then, it's like coming from the ashes and just becoming a phoenix.
Ooh, I like that imagery. Yes. Yeah, my mom does tell me that. She's like, ahí es donde aprendes. Like, you have to realize that, like, when things don't go the way you think, or mistakes, like those are the moments that you grow.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's true.
I mean, unless you did something that you deserve to go to jail, I mean, don't regret.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's a little different. The crime stuff is.
Don't regret for things, because with failure comes a lot of shame, right? And it's like,
that's something.
you know what? For example, me, I didn't finish my college education in Mexico, so I felt shame for putting my parents to paying for my school for me to just get married and take off.
Yeah.
So that was a big failure for me that weighed me down for many, many years. And it's just like, I have to go back and just make up for it. But not only for them, obviously, it was for me because I love what I do. But it's one of those things that you have to learn from failure, and then you become even stronger.
You know, you mentioned shame. I can't help but talk about that. Let's take a minute here to think about that, because to me, like, in your interpretation, what is shame? What do you feel when you feel shame? What are the sensations that you like? You're like,
that I wasn't good enough.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What else?
That it was my fault.
Oh.
And I think that I have to make up for a lot, like double. Like I have to work harder.
Okay, so let's try to reframe these sentences. Let's workshop this.
Let's see.
Me too. I'm like, I feel shame. Like I felt so much shame being gay, right? Like, so I also felt like I wasn't good enough, or I did something wrong, or like, like I felt like a terrible person, right?
Yeah.
So let's reframe the shame.
Change the mindset.
Yeah, the mindset of when you say shame, because shame is, what is it there for, really? It's like, it's to, I don't know. It's like maybe we challenge shame. Let's challenge shame when it comes upon us, right? Like instead of being like, oh, I feel shame, be like, okay, shame. I feel some shameful feelings coming on. Let's challenge these. So you're not good enough because you said that you felt that because you didn't finish your college, right?
Yeah.
That you weren't good enough. Well, you also at the time you made the best decision you could. And then you actually ended up going back to college. So it wasn't that you weren't capable of it, but circumstances around you didn't allow for you to be able to do that.
Exactly.
And your parents still gonna love you no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you try to do it for me. I feel shame. I did feel shame because I was gay. When I found out I was gay, I felt a lot of shame because I felt like this is not the way it should be. Like I'm gonna go to hell.
Yeah, all the Catholic stuff. I'm sorry, I'm still Catholic, but it's just like that's
it's
not okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, you were discovering yourself, and it's okay to go into that journey and see it's in your heart, and what else?
That's pretty good. I'll take those are two pretty good points right there. It's refreshing to hear it from that point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously it's nothing that you can control with your chemistry and the way you were born. So it's society that imposes those values, and it's not on you. Yeah. It's the problem of the society if they don't want to accept that.
Yeah.
And you have become an amazing person and have a really
Betty, okay.
nice marriage that you should be very proud of, which I'm pretty sure you are proud of.
I'm pretty proud of it. I'm pretty happy,
and your journey is amazing. I mean, I know that you told me your journey, so I love that you are amazing. So
well, you're amazing, and I think like I'm really happy that you felt comfortable and safe to share your story. I think people will see your look at the camera. Yeah. Look at your resilient story, and like I'm so excited that we manifested like what you're going to be doing, because I see it. Like, o sea, yo lo veo muy claro.
Ojalá.
You're going to do this.
Vote for me when I run.
Yes. I mean, we're bipartisan. What is it?
I'm not saying even what party I am. So
yeah, we're not even saying that. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. So just vote for me.
Oh. Yeah. So what, in 2025 or what? What are we talking about here?
Well, the city of Irvine is voting for districts in March. Please vote. Whatever you are, just vote. Okay. And if the seat where I live is open, I will
run this year
for November.
November this year.
Yes. If not, until probably 2 or 4 years from now. But Yeah, depending on the district.
Depending on the district.
If not, I'll look for something else to
Oh my
run.
God, I'm so excited for you. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be like, we knew her when, right? We're going to be like, This is so fantastic, Betty.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really happy for you. I'm really happy
to be
for
clear, my name is not in the ballots yet. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Not yet. But maybe November.
Yeah, maybe November,
okay.
yeah.
Órale, well, here we go, 2024.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Híjole. Bueno, pues, thank you again for being here and having coffee and donuts with us.
Oh,
what did you think
much.
about this French donut?
Oh, it's really, really good. It's really, really good. I just didn't want to have I wanted to eat it like instead of the coffee, I'm just gonna eat it. But it's like I'm gonna have chocolate in my. But
everybody says that, so it's okay. You're not alone in that. Bueno, pues, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Oh my God.